every culture has had to set up some guidelines for who to marry. And they have established a number of patterns that we're going to try to categorize. Once again, we're going to have to learn some terms here. Unfortunately, every discipline has its own technical terminology. And if you take an introductory class such as this is, you have to learn the terminology. Once you learn the terminology, then you can get on to do the fun stuff. So let's deal with it. Polygamy. Polygamy, the anthropological definition of polygamy is that it is the taking of more than one spouse. Okay? The taking of more than one spouse. Polygyny. Polygyny is a subcategory of polygamy. All right, so polygamy is taking more than one spouse, but polygyny is the taking of more than one wife. It's a subcategory of polygamy. Now, oftentimes in popular use, polygamy and polygyny will be used synonymously because there are so few cultures where women take more than one husband. We'll actually talk about that. But polygyny, the taking of more than one wife, is so common it becomes synonymous in the public mind and popular opinion with being polygamy. But let's keep our focus here, polygyny. Polygyny is the taking of more than one wife, and 75% of the cultures that have been studied in depth practice taking more than one wife. So, you may not like it as a practice, but apparently 75% of the attempts by cultures to solve the marriage problems thought it was a pretty good idea, because that's what they practice. There is also what we call polyandry. And polyandry is the practice of taking more than one husband. And this is practiced by a whopping 1% of the world's cultures. Not super popular. Guys apparently don't like sharing their wives around. As a matter of fact, it is so rare that only a few cultures, literally only a few cultures, actually practice polyandry. And when polyandry is practiced, that means that what happens usually is that a man will take a wife. And when they get married, it also means that his brothers look at her and say, oh, she's my wife too. So it's really when brothers share a wife. So you kind of marry into the family, so that when your husband has to go off on a long trip to trade goods or to take care of the animals, well, you've still got somebody to share your bed with you, namely his younger or older brother or whatever. So the woman always has a male companion who looks after her, takes care of her, and sleeps with her. So the practice of taking more than one husband. There is also a variation of this called sororal marriage, which is the marrying of sisters. Now, we actually have a case of that in the scriptures, do we not? Do you remember who it was that married two sisters? Leah, yes, and Rachel. Now, that wasn't his choice. The deceiver got himself into a deceitful father-in-law situation. God has a way of returning to us that which we do to others. of using the things that we want and desire and walk away from him for to punish us with, or sometimes to change us by giving us a full dose of our own medicine. Let's not make that a theological discussion. But he wants to marry the younger sister. Pops says, hey, can't allow that. Can't allow my oldest daughter to be single while her beautiful younger sister is married. So he's going to embrace sororal marriage. Some cultures do this. You get to marry sisters. Not a real common practice, by the way, but oftentimes it works. Now, I happen to be in a culture that practiced polygyny. See, I worked with a culture that had multiple marriages. And one of our guys came to us. We were just beginning to preach the gospel. It was just beginning to have a transformative role on the culture. And one of the things that my colleagues, I wasn't quite there yet, but one of my colleagues said was, anybody that's going to become a leader in the church has to have just one wife. Leaders must be the husbands of one wife. But then they had to figure out what to do with guys that had multiple wives. Matter of fact, what should we do about polygyny in this culture? Now, previous generations of missionaries had gone to Africa and to other countries, and the first thing they said was, God condemns polygyny or polygamy. God does not approve of multiple marriages, multiple wives. So anybody that becomes a Christian has to put away all but one wife. That was the rule. That was standard missionary practice in the 19th century. You want to become a Christian, put away all but one wife. Well, if they were given a choice, the men would put away all the older wives and just keep the youngest one. So that wasn't a very good idea. So then they stopped making that a requirement. They said, okay, what you've got to do is you've got to put away everyone but the first wife. She's the only legitimate wife. Well, number of these men wanted to become Christians. They wanted their wives to become Christians. So they divorced all of their wives except one. And these women now no longer had somebody to support them. They couldn't go back to their families. And so they ended up becoming prostitutes. That wasn't a very good solution either. It created all kinds of social problems. And so the missionaries that were a few years ahead of me as they were addressing this problem said, you know what, we're going to break the mold here. We are going to require all Donnie men who are in polygynous marriages to keep their wives. They cannot get a divorce. They cannot put them away. They entered into a social contract with them. They're going to stay in that social contract. They're going to take care of their wives. They're going to take care of their children. And as a matter of fact, a man cannot be baptized unless he leads all of his wives to Christ. And the very first baptism that we held in our area of the Donnie culture, a fellow by the name of Wariapamban and both of his wives went down into the baptismal pool together, and all three of them were baptized together. Now, we thought it was kind of a cool marriage, at least a cool rule. Well, here comes this young man now, and he's already taken a wife, and he wants to become a leader in the church. And we said, okay, if you want to become a leader in the church, you can only have one wife. He said, well, that's a little bit of a problem. He said, because I've already contracted for another woman. And she's the clan sister. She wasn't actually a biological, but she is the clan sister of my first wife. And we said, oh yeah, you got to break that arrangement. So he did. He went to the family of his prospective second bride, and he said, I can't get married because I want to go into the ministry. Well, they wept and they wailed, and they put real pressure on him. And the girl wanted to be the second wife. Her family wanted him to be their son-in-law. So he came to me and he said, what am I going to do? I have entered into a social contract. We haven't slept together yet. We haven't got married, but they're putting real pressure on me. What should I do? It was as close to sororal marriage as I've ever seen. And it was an interesting study because both women wanted the polygynous relationship. The first wife wanted the junior wife. The junior wife wanted our older sister to be her co-wife. And you know what? We finally had to back off and just say, you know what? There's a little phrase that we use in Dundee, "Kombalabok." It's your decision. If you do it, you cannot become a pastor. But we will allow you to at least become a baptized member of the church. So he took her. And 20 years later, I went to their village, and there were both women living in houses side by side, taking care of each other's kids, still living happily together. Kind of put an end to the lie that wives will fight and struggle with one another. They got along great, but we'll talk about that later, all right? I know you don't like it, but we'll talk about it later. So sororal marriage, marrying sisters. Then there's what we call the levirate marriage. That is marrying your widowed sister-in-law. So I happened to grow up in a family with 5 boys. Actually, my mother gave birth to 7 sons. Not a girl in the bunch. 2 of the boys died shortly after birth because of some bad health conditions, a underdeveloped heart on one because they were born premature, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, 5 of us grew up to adulthood. Now, if we were practicing the levirate marriage, if any one of those brothers died, his wife could have claimed any of the other 4 remaining brothers as her husband, with all the rights and privileges and duties associated with being another wife. Now, one of my brothers did not get married till very late. They could have chosen him because he didn't have a wife. But they could also have chosen to be the second wife of any one of the other 3. So in the levirate, there was always the potential that another woman would come into your family. Now, as it turned out, 2 of my older brothers died and left 2 widows. Under the levirate system, I could now be the proud husband of 3 women. See, my own wife and my 2 brothers' wives. See. Oh boy. But I could have. That's what the levirate marriage required. Now, you all know the delightful story of Ruth and Boaz, right? You know what's very interestingly enough not told in that story? Was Boaz already married? Was Ruth about to become wife number 2? Or was Boaz single looking for a wife? We're never told because that's not the point of the story. The story does not always give us the full details. Was she a second wife? Was she a first wife? It doesn't matter. She was a marriage by levirate law. And if you'll remember that story, Boaz has to go to the marketplace and confront another member of his family who has the first right to the levirate marriage. Do you remember that? He goes and he says, hey, here's Ruth. She is the widow of one of our family. She has a right to claim a husband from her husband's family. You're the next in line. Do you claim her and the responsibilities that go with taking her as your wife, caring for her, and caring for her children? And he says, are you kidding? I've got one wife enough. I've got one wife too many. Or whatever he said. We don't know. He just says, no, I don't want another wife. He says, you can have her. Boaz says, oh, okay, if you insist. Well, actually, he does more than that. Apparently, he falls deeply in love with her, wants her, they get married, they live happily ever after, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know the routine. So, the levirate marriage. There are more. There is what we call monogamy. Monogamy is the practice of marrying only one spouse. Now, monogamy is, in spite of the fact that 75% of the world's cultures practice polygamy or polygyny, monogamy is the most popular form of marriage in the world today. Those 75% cultures, they're all the smaller cultures, or mostly smaller cultures. Monogamy tends to predominate in the world today. We're not going to go into the reasons for that at this point, but there are a lot of social conditions that favor monogamy. Eventually, Israel is going to become a monogamous culture, but it's the marrying of only one spouse. Now, there are variations of monogamy. The American variation of monogamy is what we call serial monogamy. You can have many wives in America, but you can only have them one at a time. All right? You can only have them one at a time. You can get married, you can get divorced. You can get married, you can get divorced. You can have 10 husbands or 10 wives, but only one at a time. Everything else is a system of girlfriends and mistresses. All right. Well, serial monogamy. We've struggled long and hard, by the way, for the right term for this. What is practiced in America, where you can have one wife at a time or one husband at a time. And of course, what we've got a lot of is folk simply deciding not to get married, but just simply to live together, cohabitation. And this raises another very interesting dilemma called common law marriage. And after you live together for so long, you are considered legally responsible in the same sense of someone who's married, but that's a legal issue. Well, these are the basic patterns that we find around the globe. Now let's talk about them a little bit. We've discussed marriage terminology. We now have to ask the question, why get married? See? Because every culture has some form of social contract that is defined as marriage. Why get married? And if we're going to ask that question, we have to ask this question: what do men look for in a woman? And what do women look for in a man? I mean, after all, I suspect that most of you here are interested in getting married, aren't you? You're not all headed for the convent, are you? Okay, so you're looking for a man or a woman. What are you looking for? Now, I'm about to do you guys an immense favor. I want you to take notes. I'm giving you the opportunity of a lifetime because I'm going to ask the women in this classroom to tell me what they're looking for in a man. Are your pens ready? They're about to tell you what they're looking for in you. So, I'm going to move around a little bit, so you may want to move that camera. Because I can't, the acoustics in here are horrible. Okay, what are you women looking for in a man?
Truthfulness.
What?
Truthful.
Truthfulness. Okay, truthfulness. Did you write that down? You're not even writing. Oh, she's writing for you. Oh, okay, that's all right. Truthfulness. Okay, that's the first thing. What else are you looking for? Okay. Hardworking. By the sweat of their brow. No. Okay. Hardworking. Yes, somebody that's diligent. Provider. Yes, I would assume that providing and hardworking go together, but yeah. Hey, you know what? Who wants to be, barefoot and pregnant all the time? I'm sorry. Okay.
Is like in love with Jesus.
Like what?
In love with Jesus.
In love with Jesus. Okay. Would all of you agree that's pretty important?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, right. Okay. There's 4 traits.
I'm a spiritual leader.
Spiritual leader. Yes. You know what? Simply marrying somebody, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I never go to church. We want somebody that's in love with the Lord, who's committed to the Christian faith, who's committed to following Jesus, who's got a passion for godliness. Come on, that's important. Okay.
A humble man.
A humble man, not like me. Is that what I heard what you said? A humble man. Yes, somebody who's not, I watched a TV program last night. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. They were the most arrogant people, and I don't like sitcoms that, well, anyway.
Good sense of humor.
Good sense of humor. Yes. Somebody that can okay. Right, moving right along.
A heart for the unreached.
A heart for the unreached. Yes, somebody who's going to get with God's plan. Okay.
Look out for your best interest.
Yes. He's going to look out for your best interest. You know what? They often ask this question. What do women want? Guys often ask that. What? I can't understand. Well, what do they want? I'll tell you what they want. They want respect. They want somebody that's interested in giving them respect and look out for their best interest. Right on. Do you want to give your name for these guys? Because they're writing these down, There's a good one. All right. Yes. Faithfulness. Okay, let's just leave it at that. Yes. I think you're right on. Faithfulness.
Adventurous. Someone who's adventurous.
Adventurous. Yeah. No, I think, you know what? I had to stop and think about that a little bit, because I'm thinking about, climbing Kilimanjaro and all this. But it's got to be more than just, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro and trying to find great apes in the forest or going through the Serengeti. It seems to me like somebody who's willing to be maybe a risk taker, to reach out, to extend, to break out of safe boundaries. I like it. Do you want her name, guys? You're not even taking. I mean, you were thinking I was going to ask them to take their shirts off and show their hairy chest.
Her mom met her stepdad climbing Mount Kilimanjaro.
Oh, you kidding? I don't know where I get these things from. Anyway, okay, well, I hope they had a wonderful time on Mount Kilimanjaro. All right, what else? We got.
Someone I can be myself around.
What was that?
Someone I can be myself around.
Can be your.
Self. I can be myself.
Oh, let you be yourself. Why would you want to be yourself? Would you want to be what he wants you to be? No. No. That's a bimbo. Somebody that will like, yes.
Someone that values my character more than anything else.
Okay, valued more by character?
Yeah, like values our like,
Oh, values your character. Oh, in other words, doesn't just look at you for being a good looker. Somebody got some brains, character. Got it. Got it. Okay. Passion? Compassion. Well, you know, passion's okay too. But compassion, yeah, you know what? You're exactly right. Compassion. Now, I don't want to cut this off prematurely, but you know, we've got what, about 10 or 12 of them already? Yeah, aren't you getting a little bit demanding, ladies? I mean, you know, I mean, the more you put on there, the fewer the guys get. You know, you can already beginning to say, guys, I'm out, you know. But, you know, have you got some more? Yes.
has a loving family.
Love a family. Ooh, boy, can I go on that one? Yes, yes, because you will have a family. Most cases. And you know what? Kids are demanding. And it takes somebody who's got a strong commitment to the family to pull us through those tough times. What else have we got? What's that? Willing to learn and grow. Oh boy, can I tell you a story about that one? Why don't I? I was dating my wife, you know, we were just college kids, and we were walking home from a date, and I was such a nerd. I mean, I cannot believe that she would even fall in love with me, but I was such a nerd. And we're walking home, and I'm beginning to think, you know what? We're moving quickly out of the dating into the courtship stage here. And so, you know, I kind of want to let her know, you know, before you sign the last line here, you ought to read the contract, and here's what you're getting. And so I said, I sense that I'm going to change a lot from what I am right now, and that years down the line, I'm going to be a different person. And she looks up with me with those moony eyes of a young woman in love, and she says, "But I don't want you to change. I like you the way you are." Well, I was ready to sign on the line right there. But you know what? My wife and I actually laughed about that a while back because we did change. And as a matter of fact, she was the one that changed me. I mean, she made me a much better man. And you know, while I'm still weird, I'm not the same nerd I was back then. You know, in the 1950s or 60s or whenever we were dating. But you're right. You know, willing to change, willing to allow God's transformative work to be active within us. Well, we could probably go on. And I'm disappointed because you're not writing, you're not even taking notes. Okay, I give you women a chance. You ladies, what are guys looking for in a woman? What should you be for them? So, you guys, I want to hear from you. What are you looking for in a woman? Now, let me get this conversation started off good. Let's put priorities where they belong, all right? The first thing that you guys are looking for is she's got to be drop dead gorgeous, all right? Because that's always number one. And guys are always afraid to say it, so we get that off the table. Okay, she's got to be gorgeous. All right, what else are you guys looking for? Okay. Good personality, yes. Somebody that can go to a ball game and really throw themselves into it. Well, maybe not that, but at least a good personality, yes. Who wants a, oh, never mind. Huh?
He doesn't want to spend a lot of money on that.
Low maintenance. Got it. I do not know him. He is not here. Okay. What else are you guys looking for?
She lets God dictate how she should be, not media and fashion magazines and all that. So
She should what?
let God dictate how she should be. Find her identity in Christ, not in fashion magazines.
Okay, find her identity in Christ, not in fashion magazines. Lindsay Lohan, you don't even need to apply. Okay. Adventurous. Yes. Mount Kilimanjaro, here we come again. Okay. Why? Why do you want them to be adventurous? I mean, there are rattlesnakes out there. What else? Yes. Forgiving. Oh, we guys need that one. Oh, yeah, I like that one. Oh, yeah. I may be a schmuck, but, forgive me. I'm doing the best I can. All right, what else do you got? You guys aren't very demanding. Oh, maybe you are. Okay.
Like a best friend.
Best friends. Oh boy, did you hear the moans? Oh, like that one. Okay, another one? Determined. Yes. Okay. Say again.
Easy to talk to.
Easy to talk to. I'm telling stories on myself because I am so, you know what, the very fact that God decided to use me is such a joke in and of itself. I mean, it really, when I look back and I don't know how you did it, God. But my wife was really, really shy when we first met. I mean, she was, socially inhibited. She was so shy, walking around looking down all the time. Yoo-hoo, I'm in front of you, She just was not comfortable in a crowd, in a group. And so we'd go out on a date and I'd start talking to her, and she wouldn't express her opinion. Let's talk about something here. And I remember going home after a date with her and saying to myself, oh my goodness, if we got married, what would we talk about? The next 20, 30 years together. I just couldn't imagine that we would ever talk. I couldn't imagine her carrying on a lengthy conversation. Oh, golly, did I not know what was going to happen? Stop! I want to say something. Oh, but honey, I haven't finished yet. They change. Oh, they change. But yeah, you know what? we want to talk. We want to be able to communicate. We want to be able to share. We want to be able to feel like what we think and say and do is important to the other person. Yeah. I haven't seen you take any notes. Oh, they're there. Oh, she is taking notes.
Trusting,
Trusting.
not like nagging to find out, not believing you when you.
Not believing in you, not nagging, trusting. There are a lot of rules, by the way, that go with marriage. Oh, let's not go into that. That'll take us into marriage counseling, and we're not here for that. Okay.
Honest and truthful.
Honest and truthful. All right. Yes, a lot of character issues here. As a matter of fact, what I am discovering is that character issues seem to weigh heavily upon both men and women in the selection of a guy or of a gal for their potential partner. Well, let's look. Why did God give Adam a wife? Why did God give Adam a wife? Remember the story? There he is, there's Adam, he's in the garden, and he's got lots to do. God has just told him to name the animals. Oh, yes. I'm going to call that an elephant. Why? Because I just like the sound of elephant. Isn't it, kind of roll, he's the first linguist, he's playing with language. What are you going to call that one? I'm going to call that one a baboon. I like that, baboon, So he's naming off, and he has a delightful time naming the animals, I'm going to call that a crocodile because he's got a big smile. Oh, well, whatever, So he's naming off all the animals, and life is good, and he's enjoying it. And at the end of the day, he sits down to have his supper. And is he happy, camper? No, he's depressed. And Freud hasn't been born yet. He's got nobody to tell his depression to. And God sees that Adam is upset. Why? Because he doesn't have a partner like all the animals. Oh, there's the lion and the lioness, and, they're bathing each other with their tongues, and, there are the elephants wrapping their trunks around each other, and everybody's got somebody, and Adam ain't got nobody. So God creates for him a wife. A wife. Now, I'm not going to get into why did God create Eve instead of Steve. Okay? This is not a discussion of, two guys getting along great together. In point of fact, male and female relationships are important for reproductive purposes. Adam and Steve cannot do it by themselves. It's got to be Adam and Eve. And the pairing, the biblical pairing associated with marriage is, among other things, for the reproduction of children. But it seems to me there's something more involved here. What does the scripture say? Eve was created in order to be, and I'm using the old King James English here, a helpmate. Now, we don't use that term much anymore. What is a helpmate? It is somebody that can come alongside of the man. Male and female together so that the two of them can fulfill God's intentions for them. That's what a helpmeet is. Two people walking together, fulfilling God's intentions upon them. What were those intentions? That they might multiply and reproduce. That they might be able to take care of God's creation. That they might be able to bring fulfillment and fellowship one to another, and that they might be able to have children and raise them as a family. A helpmeet is someone who comes into your life to complement, to complete, and to fulfill God's purposes. So as far as I can tell, the whole point of why do we get married? We want to get married because we are looking for a partner that will help us to accomplish all that God desires for us. If it is the search for food in a hunting and gathering society, then we want a wife or a husband who can help us in the quest for food. If it's a matter of fellowship, if it's the care of creation, if it's even in worship, we have a partner to help us fulfill what we're looking for. Now, in all of this, I find it very interesting that the whole point of marriage in all societies continues to be culturally driven, but still with these same guidelines. I once asked Donnie Min, what are you looking for in a wife? I thought, now I'm going to find out, what do they look for in a wife? You know what they all said? We want a wife who will be diligent, responsible, and faithful in maintaining a garden. They wanted someone who would go out there and help them. If they would prepare a field for their garden place, they wanted a wife who would be diligent in growing the food that would be necessary for the family. And I said, okay, what else? They said, we want a woman who will be diligent in caring for our family herd of pigs, because this was another essential component of their diet. Be able to take care of their food, the vegetable gardens, and the pigs. And I said, is that all? Oh, they said, yeah, every once in a while we'd like to be able to, work on getting some kids. And of course, one of the things they wanted was a woman who would be able to bear children so that the next generation could succeed. Well, that was fascinating. So then I turned to the women and said, what are you looking for in a man? And they said, oh, we're looking for a man who will watch over us, work diligently for us, be a leader in the community, and be able to draw upon the resource of the community to get me garden spaces where I can work for the production of food, who can bring little pigs or baby pigs into our family for me to raise, whereby we can contribute to the well-being of the entire community. Now, this is exactly what I would expect from a horticultural society. Are you interested in marrying a woman who can raise pigs? Not in the least. And you're not interested in a guy who can tell the difference between soils and where you can grow good cabbages and where you can grow good white potatoes. We can go to Albertsons for that stuff. What are you looking for? You're looking for somebody that can help you in a society where attaining your personal best is important to you. You're looking for people who can help you to become all that you believe God has called you to be. A teacher, a professor, a professional, whatever it is. You want somebody that's going to support you in your creativity, in your gifting, in your calling. And that's all right. That's exactly what God wants you to do in searching for a partner. Somebody that can support your mutual growth together. All right? Well, there are various social cultural reasons for marriage. Your textbook goes on to a lot of these. They talk about trying to ensure children being raised, et cetera, et cetera. I'll let you read those in the textbook. I think the reasons that we've given here are by far the most important. The social-cultural reasons, well, as you find them in the textbook, they define who can have intimacies, who will care for children, the division of labor, safe havens for families, and so on and so forth. Well, what is marriage in today's culture? Marriage is undergoing a major redefinition in America right now. We are finding people are opposing the idea of marriage being limited to a male and a female. There have been suggestions that we need to have a major revision, even a constitutional revision, describing marriage as a union between a male and a female. As I have struggled with trying to understand current trends in American society, I have come up with my own emerging definition of marriage according to contemporary American standards. And it is a legally binding contract between two individuals, not between a male and a female, but a binding contract between two individuals, usually based upon some degree of emotional bonding and sexual in nature, in which both partners agree to share their lives, their assets, and sometimes these will be specifically designated in prenuptial agreements, their shared legal contracts, and the care, nurture, and financial support of any children born to them or adopted by them. Now, do you see how carefully worded that is? Now, any of you watching TV these days, I hope not, because you're supposed to be doing homework. But are you watching Grey's Anatomy, for instance? Okay, Grey's Anatomy. There are two female doctors in there who are in a relationship, and they have a child between them, obviously fathered by somebody else. This would be considered to be a marriage according to this definition. Now, is this the biblical definition of marriage? You know what's really interesting? There is no such thing as a biblical definition of marriage. It's always implied that it's between male and female because the outcome of the marriage is usually the caring for children. But can you care for children by adoption? I'm going to let you struggle your way through those. But if this is the new definition of marriage, according to American culture, here's a new set of marriage vows for today's generation. I promise to love you and to stay with you as we each pursue happiness as our God-given and constitutional right. No more of this, in richness and in poorness, in, better for worse. No. I promise to love you and to stay with you as we each pursue happiness as our God-given and constitutional right. I promise to respect your choices of what constitutes happiness as I expect you to respect mine. I promise to love you, honor you, and forgive your failures to live up to my expectations within the boundaries of my emotional limitations. I promise to release you to pursue your happiness with a fair and equitable settlement under amicable conditions as I expect you to do the same for me. I promise to be as good a parent as I can be, and I expect you to try to be the same, recognizing, of course, that none of us can be everything kids want us to be. And I hereby invoke the gracious God of the universe to join us in this holy act of matrimony by blessing us with health, wealth, and happiness. Wouldn't you love to go to a wedding where the pastor said that? But you know what? This is the unspoken statement at a lot of weddings. This is what is happening. This is what marriage has become in the United States. Why'd you leave him? Oh, I just couldn't be myself. I wasn't fulfilled, or whatever. More often than not, marriages break up because of a health problem, often associated with a child who is born physically handicapped, becomes an awful drain upon the emotional and financial resources, and one or two of the parents walk out of the marriage. Well, I don't want to expound too much on this because then I'll move from teaching into preaching. Reflect upon your own intentions in marriage. Now, I want to come back to your question. What about celibacy? What happens for people who never get married? And it happens. There came a point in my life when I was in college, and I said, I am going to stop dating. For a whole year, I did not date anyone. I said, I am going to embrace the possibility that God is calling me to be single for the purposes of the kingdom of God. And I was serious about it. So I tried to be a good guy friend to guys and a good guy friend to girls in college. I did not date. I set myself to pursuing God, and for one whole year I waited for God to reveal to me whether I should go through life single and committed to the proclamation of the gospel in the same way that the Apostle Paul was committed to the proclamation of the gospel. At the end of that year, I felt God saying to me, Hayward, the gift of celibacy, the gift of singleness is a special gift that I do give to some people. You can't have it. You're too weird. I need somebody to come along and straighten you out, and I've got just the woman to do it. And you think she's meek and mild and shy, but she's a tiger underneath all of that. And she's going to shape you up. He actually didn't say that, but that's what he meant. So I started dating again. But some people are called to singleness. And when God calls them to singleness, He never calls you to do something that He does not also equip you emotionally and in every other way to pursue. And if God calls you to a life of singleness, you are not missing out on anything. What you are going to gain is a special relationship to the Lord Himself, who will be, for you women, who will be a husband unto you. And for you guys, who will be a wife to you. Now, you're going to have to learn to control some things. You're going to have to learn to control certain kinds of sexual impulses and all the rest of that sort of stuff. But God will meet your needs. So you know what? There's a woman here right now. I want to identify her because she doesn't want to rise above the radar here. But she's a student here. I met her 30 some odd years ago. She was a single missionary in Irian Jaya. She and her female partner were working with Wycliffe Bible translators, and they were doing a job out in a tribe out in a swampy region north of us. And I went out there and I watched these two women living in this isolated village, translating this very difficult language, doing everything they could to bring the gospel to this people. And I went back to the place where I was staying, and I got down on my knees and I thanked God for two women who were willing to give so much of themselves, to give so much up on their lives. I said, God, when we all get to glory, I hope you're going to put them at the head of the line for praise and honor, because they are doing something that we guys simply will never be able to accomplish on our own. God will reward and is doing marvelous things through people who are committed to a life of singleness. And you know what? It doesn't have to be just in the proclamation of the gospel. It can be in a manifestation of godliness and righteousness in a whole variety of situations.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.